Worry, 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 worry. You guys know Ray LaMontagne? I love him. He did my wedding song. Well, he didn't know he was doing my wedding song, but my wedding song was a Ray LaMontagne song. I hope I'm like quoting the right guy. Feel pretty confident about it. Hello, everybody. Oh, 3 of you are here. Please feel free to say hello in the comments. I have to tell you, describe the moments leading up to this moment, because I think there's just something really great about it. So I have a coach because hi Karen, because I just think coaching is awesome. And my coaches have allowed me or just given me the space to be where I'm at right now. And I believe in coaching Hi, Brianna. I feel like I haven't seen you much here. So hello, I'm so glad you said hi. So I'm totally not prepared. I don't have like my little thing typed out to put on the screen or whatever, but I think there's something good in that. So I have a coach and she's awesome. And what I talk about with her is just all the thinking that I'm having. And so I was luckily able to change it and we hopped on at 12:30. And sometimes we go for a little bit, but I swear to God, it was in the last 3 minutes that I just was like, all this stuff was coming up and all this thinking. And I was like, this is the thing that I think is it. Like, this is where my thinking, hi Beth, is stuck. And this is what I want to figure out. And right. But we were literally going to the last minute because I didn't want to get off the phone because like, oh my gosh, I'm figuring, this thing is so, I feel like if I could just clear up this sticking point, like tar, right? I heard this great metaphor today that like thinking is like tar, and some of it we just stick our foot in and we just get stuck in it. But if we can just step back and be like, oh, that's just tar and I don't want to stick my foot in it, but this little bit of thinking that I uncovered I've got my foot in it. Anyway, so I literally got off that call about a minute ago. I had to pee really quick. I was like, oh my God, it's 1:30. I got to sit. So the lesson in that is it's almost like if you have a big trip scheduled and you're kind of freaked out about the trip and you've packed your suitcase, and I've packed my suitcase. Like I have some notes here that I took earlier to talk about worry and that I want to share with you. But I pretty much like just sat down on the plane and it's like, or I just got off the plane with you. I'm like, okay, here we go in this moment. So hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about worry. If you're new here, please say hello so I know you're here. I'm Allegra. I'm a thought and action coach. I love talking about thinking and I love talking about action. And I like helping people do what they most really want to do, but think that they can't because they're all stuck up in here. So really part of my job description is just helping you calm down and see your thinking for what it is so that you can start taking really cool action and micro action from that place and learning from those actions. It's like little experiments that we run. So Tanya, who's not here live today, but she had asked a question without going too much into it, but she had asked just a really interesting question about grief and worry. And worry, raise your hand if you experience worry about stuff. Although I can't see your hand raised, but you can like click like or heart or say something, or a little wave in the comments, whatever feels good for you. Worry, well, here's the thing. Everything in our life we experience is a result of our thinking. We live in thought. And the thing I heard yesterday is like, if it can't fit in a wheelbarrow, it's thought. So whatever thinking you're having right now about someone else is thought. Whatever you're thinking you're having now about money is thought. Love is thought. Like you can't hold it. Then it's a thought thing that's coming through us. So worry is just a form of thought. And the kind of thinking it is usually thoughts about the future, thoughts about what may or may not happen, thoughts about what other people are thinking, thoughts about, I don't know, lots of worry. Beth is saying, I get it. Especially if you have children or you're a caregiver or you love people, there's worry. What if this thing happens? I drew this picture this past weekend, like, and I wasn't thinking about drawing today, but I'm thinking it now because I'm kind of just going off the cuff with this one. Here's you, and here's this like thing, this imagined thing in your future, okay? And worry is just the consistent thinking about this potential thing in the future. And worry creates feelings of stress and feelings of worry, and it affects our health, right? And what happens is a couple of things about worry, about this thinking that we engage in. The first is that we think, well, if I worry about it, then I'll be safe from it. Like worrying makes me safe. And the metaphor I like to use for this, or the idea that came to me, was a few weeks ago, a very good friend of mine, she was on this highway near me and her car broke down. So she pulled to the side of the road and she called for a tow truck, and she was just sitting there having to wait on the side of the road for the tow truck. And she was texting me and we talked a little bit, and she was like, I'm waiting for a car to hit me from behind, like, because they were zipping by her. And I didn't say this at the time, but when we got off the phone, I just had this insight. I thought, the car is going to hit you whether you worry about it or not. Right? The thing, if the thing is going to happen, if this thing you're imagining actually becomes a reality, it's going to happen whether you sit in worry or you don't. No amount of worry is going to make you safe from this thing that you have no control over. So that's one thing I want you to think about, that worrying does not make you safe. It doesn't give you more control. It doesn't prevent those things that are out of your control from happening. So that's one thing. It's just like worry and safety I want you to think about. Another thing, worry in and of itself. One, when you're worried about something, you're essentially imagining this possible event. It's imaginary. The thing you are thinking about is an imagined thought. And not only that, you're also imagining what you're going to be thinking when that thing happens. I'm not sure if you can sense the two layers, and please share whatever insights. Again, this is just how I see it. This is just like the insights that I have around it, and I'm sharing them with you. And if they're bringing up stuff for you, awesome. Please share in the comments, because otherwise I feel like I'm just talking to myself. So I'd love to know what you're hearing in all of this. So on one hand, we're imagining this possible thing, and we're also imagining what we're going to be thinking when that thing happens. Because I imagine all of you have lived long enough that when a thing happens that you thought was going to happen, you usually respond in a way that you couldn't have predicted, right? The thing about thinking is that it's constantly changing. It's coming and it's going and it's moving in and it's moving out. So you don't know. Karen says, I'm very good at this, unfortunately. Tell me more. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. You're very good at what? Tell me what this is. Like thinking is always changing. I heard this story this morning for this woman who kind of started to see it, where she had this, she raises racehorses. And last week, one of her prized racehorses, or jumping horses, had a catastrophic accident and ended up passing away, having to be put down. And it was horrible. There was a lot of emotion about it. But she had been doing this work around noticing her thinking. And she realized that in 1 minute she was thinking, oh my gosh, no one, that horse never got to show everyone what it was capable of, right? And that brought her a lot of pain. And then a couple minutes later, she had the thought, because I guess she'd been in partnership with another person around that horse, and that partnership wasn't going very well. So in the next moment, she actually was like, well, but at least I don't have to deal with that person anymore. And she felt some relief. And it was just this perfect illustration of how all this works, that her thinking about the thing was constantly changing. A thought would come in and then a different thought would come in. And it was like this, I use the ocean and water a lot, that thoughts come in and they come out and we never know what's going to come next. It's like this surprise. So worry is a combination not only of imagining a future, right? And just thinking, if I just think about it enough, it's going to change it or make it not happen. But it's also imagining that we know what we're going to think when that thing happens, and you don't, because you don't know what you're going to think in an hour. You don't know what you're going to think tonight. You don't know what you're going to think tomorrow, because thought doesn't stick around, and it's not predictable, and it comes and it goes. And so that's another piece of it. I want to just kind of like throw into the pot and find out what you're thinking about. Now, Karen said she's really good at imagining scenarios, worrying about the reactions of others. Totally. And here's the thing. Understanding this stuff that I'm sharing, like thinking about it and kind of considering it and plugging it in as a possibility, will not make that go away. And that's an important thing. Like, this stuff that I'm talking about won't change that. But what it does is it changes your relationship to it, so that when you do find yourself in worry and imagining scenarios, right, playing out this movie in your head, it provides that moment of being able to say, oh, this is just a movie. And this movie's going to stop and it's going to pass. And then I'll be moving on to the next thing. And there's something really difficult to put one's hands on when you realize that, oh, my dog again. If you've been watching me at all, you know that my dog goes in and out. 1 second. Come on. Sorry, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Okay. So, Karen, I'm curious what you heard in that, because your question kind of triggered that idea. All right. What else did I write down? Thinking's always changing. Oh, kind of playing into that when you, that whole thing of a movie, this idea, like when you don't give into it, when you're able to just kind of watch it like you're watching a movie and realize you're not in the movie, but you can watch the movie, it dissolves on its own. That was just another thing that kind of I jotted down, that it does, the stress of the worry dissolves on its own when you realize that it's just stuff coming in and that it will go out, and that holding on to it isn't going to make you any more safe or protected. And worry is like a very poor substitute for, and I heard this morning, I read something by Michael Neal. He talks a lot about this, that worry is a poor substitute for knowledge, intuition, and inspiration. And that worry actually gets in the way of those things. Like, we think that if we worry enough, we will be more prepared for if that moment happens. When, again, I think that we're more prepared when we're more calm, and that we can be calm and prepared at the same time, that they actually feed one another. But we've given into this idea, like, no, I have to worry to be safe. I have to worry to be prepared. I have to worry in order to be my best. And I want to suggest to you that you can actually, that if this thing, even that you're imagining, right, happens, that you can still deal with it without having to give in to that stress and agitation. Oh, I'm so curious what you're thinking out there. I'm dying to know what you're thinking about all this. So please feel free to share in the comments or send me a message or something, because I can say it, like, it feels so clear to me, but I'm like, it doesn't matter the words that I'm saying. What matters is what you're hearing. So feel free to share what you're hearing. Karen says, I have learned that worry put the burden of the experience or relationship on me, since I fear those reactions. I've learned that worry put the burden of the experience on me, since I fear those reactions. You mean the reactions from other people, right? But notice how, again, fearing a reaction from someone doesn't make you any more prepared to deal with the reaction. Like, you're going to deal with it when it happens, because that's what we do. Things happen and we respond to it. You know, what I'm thinking of is I love imagining conversations. Hi, Laura. I love imagining like, if I need to talk to someone, and I haven't done this in a while, but I'll be driving and I'll like prepare the conversation in my mind. I'll pretend that I know. I don't know if you ever do this, where you just play out an imagined conversation in your head and you're like, well, when they say this, then I'm going to say that. And I practice it and I practice it and I practice it. And then I have the conversation and it's never like anything that I've prepared for. It's never what I've expected. And looking back on it now, it's like, wow, I didn't have to spend so much time trying to pretend that I knew it was going to happen, because you don't. And it's like this paradox, because on one hand, we want to know that we're right and that the thing we're thinking is going to happen. If we're just thinking about it enough, then we'll be ready and it'll stop it. But what if the reverse is true? And how many conversations do we have to prepare for and have before we realize that no amount of preparation will make us any more ready for that moment? And that it's never going to work out like we think it's going to work out. Laurel shares, I'm not so much a worry, but live with my wife and son who have anxiety with lots of worry. And I get that. I heard this really powerful thing today. I'm going to share it with you, Laurel. That I wrote it down. That no one in our lives ever is the problem. Like that another person, another thing is never the problem. That all what we have a problem with is our thinking about those people. That it's our thought always that's creating that anxiety and that agitation that we've got. Hold on. Oh, dog came back in. And that's really powerful. And it's very challenging, especially when we're with people that we love. But this situation I heard this morning was this woman who's like, I have no problem myself, but all these people around me are just doing these things and they're driving me crazy. And the message was, it's never the people around us that are creating it. It is our own thought about those people that's creating our agitation and our concern. And we think it has something to do with them, but it actually is all the thought we have about them. And as I'm sitting here, I'm like looking off into space because I'm like, right, that's how it is. I know that's how it is, but I also know, Laurel, how hard it is when we're around people who are experiencing their lives in such a powerful way, and we just want to, I don't know, we want to change that, or we want to show up differently in some way. But then there's that freedom of realizing I can do, it's within me as well. Imagine conversations and scenarios I do. My dog totally wants to get out again. He went out, he came in. Now he's going out. Hold on. Go on. Either stay in or out. Go on. Go on. Oh. Do any of you have a dog that does this? Let's see. Beth says, I do that too. You imagine conversations and scenarios. So Beth, tell me how many times a conversation has worked out like you imagined it to be. I'd be curious to know. For me, 0. And Laurel, thank goodness, says 3 dogs. So hopefully you're totally getting what's happening here. It's so funny. You stand here in, out. I even opened it and he didn't go out. All right, let's see. Ellen, who I've... Oh, gosh, hold on, Ellen. I'm sorry. So, out. Go. Ellen says, this might sound strange, but worrying feels like planning for the possible probable issue, and that by thinking about it ahead of time, I'll have ways of dealing with it if it occurs. So you can do that. But again, it's kind of like, I kind of think about it as like packing. You can do that. There's nothing to keep you from being, it's like climbing a mountain and you're going to go in a certain direction. You're like, well, I could think about it this way and I could think about it that way. That's almost like, in my mind, preparing like for possibilities is different. I don't know if I'd call that worry. Maybe it depends on how it feels. Like, what is the feeling from all of that thinking? Does it feel like, oh yeah, well, there's this and that? Or is it, well, what if this happened? Well, I'm trying to imagine all the scenarios. And if I just prepare for all of them, then I will be ready. But again, that whole idea of, well, that's kind of fooling ourselves, or this false idea that by thinking through all of it, I will be most ready for all of it. And I want to put to you like, well, what if the reverse is possible as well? Much like this. What if it were possible to be totally ready for it, but to be relaxed along the way? Sorry, going reverse, wrong direction. Whoop, relaxed along the way. And can I relax and be ready for whatever happens, as opposed to being on high alert and trying to predict the future as a way of being most ready? I'm curious what you're hearing in that, Ellen, and thank you for sharing your comment, because I feel like it's one of the first times I'm hearing it from you, and I love that you're here. Thank you. Laurel's sharing, worry seems more from a negative place and planning from a positive, or at least neutral. And I want to emphasize neutral. I'm so into this idea of neutrality as opposed to like happiness, happy has become this thing like, well, we gotta be happy and if we're not happy. But I, for those of you who are out there, like, what if it's just about finding neutrality? That just being able to kind of float along with it, as opposed to being like, I've got to always be up here. What if it's not that? And it's okay if you're not there, and knowing that it just kind of comes and it goes and it comes and it goes. And we can be this neutral observer of it as opposed to victim to it, like we're in the grasp of it as opposed to just watching it. Cool. I'm loving all the engagement today. Feel free. I know I share this usually in the front, but if there's someone who you think could hear this or would find some kind of insight in this conversation, feel free to share it. I'm happy with these being shared. You can share them individually. You can share them. Facebook makes it really easy to share. But I've been appreciating all the different, again, even just seeing some new names here today, I'm like, woo, I love that there's someone who, to connect with. Ellen, I'm so curious just if you have other thoughts on things too. And for those of you that have been sharing your comments, it's awesome. Let me see if there was anything else that I had that I wanted to bring up today before signing off. Worry is made up. I love that. I need a dog, but it's not going outside. It's just going to another part of my house. And I think my husband has come home, so that's why he's in and out. It's like, oh, I gotta go see him, but I gotta come see you. I gotta go see him. Gotta come see you. It's made of thought. It comes and goes. It's transient. Yeah, that's what I got. That's what I got on worry. That it's imagined, that it's all made up, and that indulging in it, like holding on to it really tightly, does not make you any more safe or ready or prepared or able to deal with when it happens, because you don't know what you're going to think when it happens. It's like trying to get good at something you will never be able to do. And so I invite you to kind of release yourself from that pressure of having to know exactly what's going to happen and how you're going to be when that happens. Yeah. Any other final thoughts? Any other questions? Anything coming up now? I'm happy to stick around. Don't see much coming through. That's cool. But as always, I would love to invite you, if this stuff is resonating, if you want support in implementing this for yourself towards the things that you want to create and make happen, I invite you to connect and to set up a free time to chat. It would be amazing. I've been having some conversations with people and they've been very powerful. And if exploring coaching or a partnership around your stuff is something you'd love to do, I'd love to invite you to make that happen. I'll put the, I think most of you know, but it's at allegrastein.com /coaching, and you can totally head there and set up a time to talk. That would be amazing. But in the meantime, I'm here daily. I think I'm going to stop doing Saturdays and Sundays just because it's a good little break, but I will be here Monday through Friday, and I'm not exactly sure what time I will be back tomorrow, but keep your eyes peeled for it. I usually post it early in the day, so you can always come back and just take a peek for that. Tomorrow, it will likely be in the first half of the day, probably maybe back towards the 9-10 hour, and I don't know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Isn't that great? Let's see. Someone has shared, Beth, it has never worked out the way I imagined. Exactly. Exactly. And there's relief in that. It will never work out the way we imagine because we just can't. Because we're kind of it's like And when we want to hold on to it, we think that if we just do that enough, we'll know exactly who we're going to be and exactly how we're going to respond when we get there. Hello, Laurel. That's awesome. She's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, I know, because I know that I'm going to come up with something and I'm going to be really excited to share it with you, and incredibly grateful that you're here sharing your thoughts and your comments and your love. And if I can, like, you know, yeah, I'd love to just ask you if you're game, like, to feel free to invite people to come follow along, to engage, to participate, especially if you think there's value in these and that other people that you know in your life would enjoy hearing about this stuff and like the idea of getting curious and thinking about thinking and taking action and how to like create cool change and not feel so much like we're controlled by all of this stuff, but that we can see those things in a different way and create stuff in our lives from a different place, from a very powerful, awesome place. So, yeah, I would love to invite you and ask you to share and spread the word. That would be awesome. And I've said before that if there are themes or questions that you have or things going on in your life specifically that you'd like me to talk about, today's session was inspired by a question someone sent me. Send me a direct message about it. Don't hesitate to ask, because again, this is how I'm seeing things, but I'm always interested in how you're seeing things. And I'm reading through all of this stuff as I think about what to share next. So I invite you to reach out and connect if you have any requests or insights or ideas. All right. You're all fabulous. And I wish you a fabulous Thursday. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning.